And we're going to continue reading A House Like a Lotus by Madeleine L'Engle. The plane plunged through a bank of clouds, and the stewardess called over the loudspeaker that we were all to fasten seatbelts and put seat trays and tables in upright position for the descent into Athens. I kept blowing my nose to clear my ears as the pressure changed. With a minimum of bumps, we rolled along the runway. Athens. I joined the throng leaving the plane, like animals rushing to get off the ark. I followed the others to baggage claim and managed to get my suitcase from a carousel by shouldering my way through the crowd. As I lunged the heavy bag towards the long counters for customs, I heard loudspeakers calling names, and I hoped I might hear mine, but nobody called for Polly O'Keefe. The customs woman peered into my shoulder bag. She could have taken it, as far as I was concerned, but I couldn't refuse the bag, which Max sent over from Bouillère, without someone in the family noticing and making a crisis over it. It was gorgeous, with pockets and zippers and pads and pens, and if anybody else had given it to me, I'd have been ecstatic. The customs woman pulled out one of my notebooks and glanced at it. What I wrote was obviously not in the Greek alphabet, so she couldn't have got much out of it. She handed it back to me with a scowl, put a chalk mark on my suitcase, and waved me on. I went through the doors, looking at all the people milling about, looking for Uncle Sandy and Aunt Rhea to be visible above the crowd. I saw a tall man with a curly blonde beard and started to run toward him. But he was with a woman with red hair out of a bottle. Why would anybody deliberately want that color hair? And when I looked at his face, he wasn't like Sandy at all. Aunt Rhea has black hair, shiny as a bird's wing, long and lustrous. I have my hair cut short, so there'll be as little of it to show as possible. Daddy says it will turn dark, as his has done, the warm color of an Irish setter. I hope so. Where were my uncle and aunt? I'd expected them to be right there, in the forefront of the crowd. I kept looking, moving through groups of people, greeting, hugging, kissing, weeping. I even went out to the place where the taxis and buses were waiting. They weren't there either. Back into the airport. If I was certain of anything in an uncertain world, it was that Sandy and Rhea would be right there, arms outstretched to welcome me. And they weren't. I simply had to accept that they were not there. And I wasn't as sophisticated a traveler as I'd fooled myself into thinking I was. Someone else had always been with me before, doing the right things about passports, changing money, arranging transportation. I'd gone through passport control with no problem, but now what? I looked at the various signs, but although I had learned the Greek alphabet, my mind had gone blank. I could say thank you. Effarsto, and please. Parakalo. Kalamos means pen, and Matthias means student, and I'd gone over several times the phrasebook for travelers Max had given me. I'm good at languages. I speak Portuguese and Spanish, and a bit of French and German. I even know some Russian, but right now, that was more of a liability than an asset, because when I looked at the airport signs, I confused the Russian and Greek alphabets. I walked more slowly. Thought I saw Sandy and Rhea, started to run, then slowed down again in disappointment. It seemed the airport was full of big blonde-bearded men and tall black-haired women. At last, I came upon a large board, white with pinned-up messages, and I read them slowly. Greek names, French, German, English, Chinese, Arabic names, finally, P. O'Keefe. I took the message off the board and made myself put the pin back in before opening it. My fingers were trembling. Delayed. Will call hotel. Sandy, Rhea. They had not abandoned me. Something had happened, but they had not forgotten me. I held the message in my hand and looked around the airport, where people were still milling about. Well, I didn't need someone to hold my hand, keep the tickets, tell me what to do. I found a place where I could get one of my traveler's checks cashed into Greek money, and then got a bus which would take me to the hotel. It was the King George Hotel, and Max had told me that it was old-fashioned and comfortable, and where she stayed. If Max stayed there, then it was expensive as well as pleasant, and that made me uncomfortable. I wouldn't have minded my father paying for it, though marine biologists aren't likely to be rolling in wealth. I wouldn't even have minded Sandy and Rhea paying for it, because I know Rhea had inherited pots of money, but it was Max. This whole trip was because of Max. And we'll pause there.